Hi everyone, it's Eryberrie. Welcome back to another vlog. This time I thought I'd review something that came to us for the last time, potentially for the last time, a year ago, and that is the TV show Sherlock. I am a huge fan of Sherlock. I think I was more so a fan several years ago when I filmed my very first vlog, the very first one I did. I spoke about the show and how it inspired me with my writing. I couldn't praise the show enough. I was obsessed with it for a long time afterwards. And series 3 was something that the whole world seemed to be looking forward to. Reichenbach really seemed to be the pinnacle of the popularity of the show. However, when series 3 aired, I have to say I wasn't exactly psyched about it. And I enjoyed series 4 probably a little bit more than series 3, but seriously not enough. It just wasn't enough to make me feel that the show had maintained that special quality that it always exhibited in the first 2 series. There's too many characters. We first of all had John and Sherlock, Mrs. Hudson and Mycroft, but Mrs. Hudson and Mycroft were in the background. They've come a bit too far forward. Now we've got so many more characters, some that have died, some that haven't, and of course inevitably as the series go on, more and more characters will come into it. But they seem to be more and more prominent characters, and they're taking away a lot of the limelight from Sherlock and John. The friendship between these two men was the highlight and the focus point of the entire series, and that seems to have been overshadowed by all these characters coming in. The next point I'm really not happy with is a lot of these new characters seem to be very clever for some reason. They seem to have intellect on par with Sherlock, and sometimes even more. Sherlock in the first 2 series was seen as this big brain box, this genius guy. He seems to have been overshadowed a lot, and sometimes, quite a lot of the time, he actually looked like a bit of an idiot in series 3 and 4. He didn't make himself the brainiest person in the room as he always had been, and that's, I think, what we really loved about him. We loved his narcissism and his arrogant attitude. Mary, I didn't dislike Mary, but she didn't have to be this clever assassin. She didn't need to be someone whose IQ is on par with Sherlock. She could have just been a woman with whom John fell in love. It was actually unnecessary, in my view, to make her the way that she was. She could have been a really nice person. She could have been a clever person, but not to the extent that she was. She didn't have to be that way. And then you have the villains like Magnuson and Culverton. Again, villains in this apparently all seem to be highly intelligent people, or they seem to be those who have amazing memories and ways of cheating the system. You can't have a villain that for some reason isn't quite up there, but maybe that would be too easy for Sherlock to solve, I don't know. But they seem to all sometimes be trying to become the next Moriarty and not quite making it. Now, I'm not saying at any point any of these characters were played terribly. It's just simply that I didn't see the point in all of them being as astute and as clever as they actually were. And that also brings us on to Eurus. I didn't see the point of Eurus at all. I'm so sorry, but I really didn't. There's no sister in the book. There's not even another sibling referred to in the books. And she seems to also be so clever that she's almost bordering on psychic. How is she capable of doing all these things? Because intelligence can only get you so far, really. It doesn't mean that you're perfect at everything. I also have a problem with the rhyme that she had. I don't know what it is about it, but it just didn't sit well with me. Her message to Sherlock was, I need help, I need you to come to me, I need you to seek my room. I don't know whether that was meant literally or not. Sherlock did carry that task out literally, and there she was in her room, no longer the Eurus that we had been led to believe. Somehow she was vulnerable and needing someone to give her a hug, and if that's all that was needed to bring her down from that plane, it's kind of anticlimactic. It didn't seem like the wonderful end of it that it should have been. Another character I didn't see the point of was Billy. What was the point in this man being there? Yes, fine, John beating him up and everything, that was quite cool. He didn't have to be great at deduction. He didn't have to be there at the Holmes family house. And Sherlock, as we know, is a graduate chemist. He's also a junkie himself. He could have easily concocted that sleeping potion. He didn't need Billy's help. So I didn't really see the point in Billy being there. And also introducing his parents again is just opening things up too much. I like to think of Sherlock as being a force of nature. He just is what he is. And delving into his past and into him psychologically kind of took away from the force that he is and made him probably a little bit too human. They could have really reined that in and just dropped a few hints without giving away too much. The plots of series 3 and 4 I found extremely convoluted, unnecessarily peppered with extra detail, elaborate sequences like the courtroom sequence at the wedding. I again didn't see the point of it. It's almost as if the writers were trying to say, what can we get away with to make this interesting? But it didn't actually do it in the best way. I sometimes think that the writers of Sherlock probably believe that really elaborate plots and lots of twists and turns equals great writing. It doesn't. It actually takes away from the enjoyment because you're trying to figure things out. And that's good to a certain extent, but not too much. It took it away from it. It didn't give you the buzz that you really expected. Well, at least it didn't give me that buzz. One mistake I think they made with Series 4 is that they didn't bring back Stephen Thompson. And Stephen Thompson actually didn't have a great part in Series 3 in the writing process. Stephen Thompson wrote the Reichenbach 4, which in my opinion is the best one out of all of them. They should have kept it as 3 writers. I think Stephen Thompson, he was the best one. He was able to get a complicated story or a simple story made a little bit more elaborately, but to the right taste, not too much. And a lot of the stories in the original Conan Doyle books were really simple. They weren't that difficult at all. It was how Sherlock solved the cases. You don't need to add lots of theatricals into the TV show because in a way it does become very distracting from the main plot of the story. A lot of the characters were unbelievable. I think Eurus was quite unbelievable. And I think they really needed to distill it down rather than expand it. I also felt that they moved further away from the books in Series 4 particularly than the other series. Yes, they had Victor Trevor and Musgrave Hall, but there wasn't enough references to the Conan Doyle books. It was the most unauthentic series, I think, out of all 4 of them. I do think they should make it more about the crimes and more about the mysteries rather than be about how complicated they can make a storyline. There were certain parts of the series I also found quite cheesy. Mary's DVDs to be one of them. I thought that was just too perfect, far too perfect. It seems quite incredulous to me that she was anticipating her death and that it would be imminent. I don't know how. And that she had to make this DVD for Sherlock. It seemed to make it seem as if Mary had foresight, whereas she wouldn't have had. The DVD, again, was theatrical and over the top. And even though I quite liked what Mary said at the end, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, again, it's getting into sort of like the mushy, cringy side of things, which I didn't particularly enjoy. Another one I didn't particularly like was the scene in the children's hospital. That was too much. I was cringing all the way watching that. It was far too much to show in front of children, and it was unnecessary for them to be there. The children in that place and the nurses didn't really play a part in what this was all about. And I also didn't buy Toby Jones as this person who could easily manipulate the health professionals and the children into thinking he was a nice person. To me, he just screamed creepy. It didn't convince me. Of course, you as the audience have to know by looking at him, yeah, he's a serial killer, but you also have to believe that the people in the show would be fooled. And I didn't believe that. A few things I think they got right, though, was that they kept Lestrade and Molly very consistent. If anything, Molly took a bit of a back seat, and Lestrade maybe a little bit, but they kept those characters very, very consistent. And speaking of supporting characters as well, I also do believe that Mycroft and Mrs. Hudson took too much of a prominent role, and we found out a bit too much about Mrs. Hudson. She could have easily have just remained the landlady, who was in her own right quite intelligent, but she didn't need to be this cartel running lady who's quite corrupt, etc., etc. Because in the book, she's very rarely there. She's mostly spoken about than seen. So again, I don't think she should have been in as prominent as she actually was. Mycroft, again, in the books, is only in there, I think, 2 or 3 times. 3 at most. I think it's 2. Again, he's becoming like the third wheel of the series. It should have focused a lot more on Holmes and Watson and their relationship and how they go about putting right the wrong. However, don't get me wrong, I think series 3 and 4 were good. They just did not live up to the expectations of the previous 2 series. And I think if they were to bring it back, they should not bring Eurus back into it. I also didn't... I found Eurus's plot to be very, very unbelievable, and I didn't buy it. Sorry. They should definitely, keep Molly and Lestrade going. Mycroft should take a back seat. Mrs. Hudson should take a back seat. There should be more focus on the relationship between these 2 men and the crimes that they solve and the clients that come to them for help. A little bit more of the blog, I quite like that. They should keep the plots simple. They should keep the execution and the camera angles and the settings simple. They don't need to make it over the top. Focus on the story and the relationship and we'll be happy. That is what will keep us happy, I believe. But anyway, whether you agree or not, I'd like to hear your comments. I'd like to hear what your views are on the TV show and whether you feel it should return. I would like to see it return, but I think it does actually deserve another chance at being good again. But if they were to bring it back and it's not up to scratch, then I think they should can it. If they are going to stop it there, fair enough. We had 4 really good series. The first 2 series were the best. I think the second series was better than the first, but the first was still really good. And that's basically my view on it. And yes, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment. I think I've done that right. Thank you very much. Bye.